November 2024. Just 2 weeks after documents found in an abandoned Cancun hotel shook the world with the truth about the 24 who vanished in 1993, a new revelation emerged from the most unexpected of sources. It came not from FBI investigators, nor tenacious journalists, nor declassified government files. It came from a 67-year-old cleaning woman who had kept a secret for 3 decades. A secret that now, from her deathbed, she decided the world needed to know. Rosa Elena Gutiérrez had worked at that very hotel in the tourist zone from its grand opening in 1985 until it closed its doors in 2008. For 23 years, she had cleaned rooms, changed sheets, and silently observed the secrets guests left behind. She was one of those invisible employees, the kind tourists rarely notice, moving like a shadow through the temporary lives of those seeking paradise in the Mexican Caribbean. But what she found hidden in room 312 on the morning of March 18, 1993 had haunted her every day since. For 31 years, she had carried the weight of knowing something that could have changed everything. Something that might have saved lives or at the very least provided answers. Fear had kept her silent, but now, with a terminal cancer diagnosis and mere weeks to live, the weight of that secret had become more unbearable than any threat. Rosa Elena called for her granddaughter, Maria Fernanda, a journalism student at UNAM. The 24-year-old had grown up hearing her grandmother speak in whispers about the hotel's dark days, but she had never pressed for details. Now, seated beside the makeshift hospital bed in the living room of their modest family home, Maria Fernanda listened with growing horror as her grandmother revealed the truth. "My child," Rosa Elena began, her voice weak but resolute, "there is something you need to bring to light. All these years I have kept something that does not belong to me. It belongs to the families of those poor kids who disappeared. It belongs to the world. I can't take this weight to my grave." With hands that trembled from illness and age, from symptomacy, Rosa Elena directed her granddaughter to the old wardrobe in her bedroom. Behind a false panel that Maria Fernanda had never noticed in all her childhood years playing in that house, there was a hollow space. Inside, wrapped in multiple layers of plastic and cloth, rested a time-worn shoebox. Maria Fernanda brought the box to her grandmother, who opened it with the reverence of someone handling a sacred relic. Inside was a small, pink, leather-bound diary, its pages yellowed with age but still legible. On the cover, embossed in faded gold letters, it read, "Jessica Chang, Private Thoughts." It was the diary the UCLA medical student had kept during her final days in a paradise that would become her hell. But the diary was not alone. Wrapped in tissue paper that crumbled at the touch were 17 additional pages, hastily written on different kinds of paper. Hotel napkins, toilet paper, even the backs of tourist brochures. The makeshift materials told their own story of desperation. They were notes written by different hands, messages from the other missing students that Jessica had managed to collect in the final hours before their fate was sealed. There were also small objects, a jade necklace with Chinese inscriptions, a braided bracelet with beads spelling out "Help," a University of Texas class ring, and a small silver cross stained with what looked like dried blood. Each object was a silent scream from the past, a physical testament to lives cut short. What those pages revealed not only confirmed the worst suspicions about what happened that March night in 1993, but they exposed something far more disturbing. The 24 knew they were in mortal danger. They had tried desperately to escape, or at least to leave evidence behind. And most chilling of all, some had left specific messages about where they were being taken, information that completely contradicted the official documents discovered in October. Maria Fernanda began to read the diary, her hands trembling. The first few pages seemed normal, the typical reflections of a college student on spring break. But as she read on, the handwriting grew more erratic, the words more desperate, until the final entries were the frantic scrawls of someone who knew her time was running out. If you followed the case of the Cancún 24, what is about to be revealed will change everything you thought you knew. This diary contains the last words of young people who knew they were going to die. These final messages reveal names, places, and a secret someone has tried to keep buried for over 30 years. The world needs to hear this new truth, hidden for 31 years. Jessica Chang's diary, First Signs. The diary began on March 14, 1993, the day before Jessica arrived in Cancun. The first entry was written on the plane, in the perfect script of a medical student accustomed to taking precise notes. March 14th, 10:30 a.m., flight UA 1247 to Cancun. Finally, a vacation. After midterms from hell, I need this. Mom almost didn't let me come. She says Mexico is dangerous. If she knew the most dangerous thing I plan on doing is drinking piña coladas on the beach, she'd laugh. David Goldberg is already asleep in the seat next to me, snoring as usual. The rest of the group is scattered around the plane. Rachel won't stop talking about all the clubs she wants to hit. Kevin is coding on his laptop, even on the plane. That boy needs to learn to relax more than I do. The hotel looks incredible in the pictures, exclusive but not pretentious. I like that it's not one of those mega resorts. David said his cousin stayed there last year and that it's perfect for college kids who want to party but with a little class. I hope to meet some interesting people, maybe even practice my rusty Spanish. The next entry was from the hotel, that same night. March 14th, 11:45 p.m., room 507. The hotel is strange. Not bad, just strange. It's beautiful, definitely. But there's something in the air. The staff is too attentive. And I don't mean good service, I mean they are literally watching us. During dinner, I counted at least 3 employees just staring at our table from different angles. Rachel says I'm being paranoid, that it's my first time at an all-inclusive and I'm not used to this much attention. We met a group from Texas at the pool. They seem cool. A girl named Jennifer reminds me of my freshman roommate. Her friend Sarah is super fun. The guys with them are typical college jocks, but not as obnoxious as I expected. One of them, Brad, is actually pretty smart, pre-med, like me. No surprise there. When we checked in, the manager came out to welcome us personally. A man in his mid-40s, very well dressed. He looked at us. I don't know how to describe it. Like how my dad appraises gems in his jewelry store, sizing us up, calculating our value. It gave me the chills. March 15th, 7:00 a.m. Didn't sleep well. Had weird nightmares about being trapped underwater. Rachel had the same dream. Coincidence? The breakfast is amazing, but that welcome cocktail from last night tasted off, like bitter medicine mixed with fruit. David says it's probably just some cheap local liquor. March 15th, 2:00 p.m. Something is definitely not right. During the hotel tour this morning, I saw something I wasn't supposed to. A door to a staff area was ajar. Inside, I saw a board with photos on it. Our photos. All taken without us knowing. Pictures of me at the pool this morning, of David at the bar, of the Texas guys on the beach. Why would they have that? I told Kevin and he hacked the hotel's Wi-Fi. Because of course, that's what Kevin does even on vacation. He found something disturbing. There are hidden cameras in places they shouldn't be. Not in the rooms we checked, but in specific common areas. All of them pointed at tables and spots where we, specifically our group and the one from Texas, tend to hang out. March 15th, 6:30 p.m. Jennifer from the Texas group just pulled me aside. She's scared too. She said one of the waiters warned her in Spanish, she understands a little, not to go to the yacht party. She didn't get the context, but she said the waiter seemed genuinely worried. The problem is, there's no yacht party scheduled that we know of. March 15th, 11:30 p.m. Beach party tonight. The manager showed up again. This time his attention was more specific. He knew our full names, our majors. He even mentioned that my dad owns a jewelry store in San Francisco. I never told anyone here that. Jennifer was pale. He knew about her job at the university newspaper. Brad confirmed that no one in their group had shared that information. And then came the invitation. An exclusive party on a private yacht tomorrow night just for special guests. When I asked who the special guests were, he smiled and said, "You, of course. The 24 most promising young people we have this week." 24? I counted. We are exactly 24 between the Texas group, our group, a few couples we met, and some solo travelers. It can't be a coincidence. The terrifying discovery. March 16th, 5:00 a.m. Couldn't sleep. Went for a walk around the hotel before sunrise. Big mistake. Or maybe the best thing I could have done. I found one of the bellboys, a young guy named Miguel, crying on the service stairs. He was drunk. When he saw me, he started apologizing frantically in Spanish. Then in broken English, he said something that froze my blood. "You need to leave. Today, all of you, before tonight, please." I begged him to explain. Through sobs and a mix of Spanish, I understood this. This has happened before. Every year during spring break, select groups are harvested. The yacht isn't for a party, it's for... My God, I can't even write it. It's to take us to another boat, a cargo ship, to be sold. Miguel showed me something he stole from the manager's office. A list, our names, with prices next to them. My name has $45,000 next to it. Jennifer's has $50,000. The couples have higher joint prices. I took a picture with my disposable camera. I hid the film in my toiletry bag, inside a fake tampon I used to hide emergency cash. March 16th, 10:00 a.m. Emergency meeting with everyone I could find. Jennifer, Brad, Sarah, Mike, David, Kevin. I showed them what I discovered. Brad doesn't believe me. He thinks it's some elaborate prank. But Jennifer is terrified. She remembers her drink tasting weird last night. David, ever the analyst, pointed out something important. All the guests invited to the yacht have something in common. We come from middle-class families. Well off enough to afford the trip, but not so rich or connected that our disappearance would cause an international scandal. Kevin hacked deeper into the system. He found emails. They're in code, but some things are clear. There are buyers waiting. They mention fresh spring merchandise. There are GPS coordinates that Kevin says are in the middle of the ocean, about 20 miles off the coast. March 16th, 3:00 p.m. We tried to leave. David and I went to the front desk to check out. They told us there was a problem with our accounts, that the manager would sort it out tonight. We tried to walk out anyway. Security guards stopped us, politely but firmly. They said there was a security issue in the area and that it was for our own good to stay inside the resort. Jennifer tried to call her dad. The phone lines were temporarily out of service. Our cell phones have no signal. They never worked great here, but now it's zero. The internet is blocked except for a few specific sites. We are completely cut off. Sarah had a brilliant idea. We're writing help messages and leaving them in places where the cleaning staff will find them tomorrow. But then I remembered. Tomorrow might be too late. The families deserve to know the truth of their children's final hours. This diary proves it wasn't a random kidnapping, but an operation planned for months. It's a chilling look into how these networks operate and how they turn paradise into a trap. The desperate messages of the 24. The most shocking part of Rosa Elena's discovery wasn't just Jessica's diary. It was the 17 additional pages she had managed to collect. According to her last entry, Jessica had convinced the others to write messages for their families, promising she would find a way for them to be found. Maria Fernanda spread the fragile pages across the table. Each was a universe of pain condensed into hurried words. Some were written in pen, others in pencil, one even in eyeliner. Message from Jennifer Morrison written on a cocktail napkin from the hotel bar. Mom, Dad, if you find this, know that I fought. I'm not going down without a fight. The hotel manager's name is Roberto Villanueva. He has a scar on his left eyebrow and a snake tattoo on his wrist that he hides with his watch. He works with someone they call El Turco. I never saw him, but I heard the name. They're taking us on a yacht called the Sirena del Caribe, but that's not the final stop. I overheard there's a cargo ship waiting. It's called the Panama Star. Please look for it. Some of us are going to South America, others to Eastern Europe, some to the Middle East. It depends on our features. If I don't come back, please take care of Buddy. Give our golden retriever his special treat every night like I did. Tell Grandma I always carried the rosary she gave me. It's in my pocket right now. I love you both so much. Forgive me for not listening when you told me not to come alone. Jennifer Marie Morrison, March 16, 1993. Message from Brad Thompson on carefully rolled toilet paper. Whoever finds this, we are not the first. A waiter named Carlos told me when he was drunk that this happens every year. Spring break 1991, 15 missing. 1992, 19 missing. Always students. Always around this time. Look up the reports. There have to be patterns. I saw documents in the office when they took me in there. They thought I was more drugged than I was. There are complicit hotels in Puerto Vallarta, Acapulco, Cabo. It's a network. They have people at the airports, in the consulates, on the police force. That's why no one ever really investigates. If I die, tell my little brother Tommy he can have my baseball card collection. Even the signed Nolan Ryan. Tell Dad I'm sorry about wrecking his car last year. To Mom, you were right about everything. I should have listened. I love you all. Brad Thompson, University of Texas, class of '87, on the cross-country team. A message from Maria Sanchez, written on the back of a tourist brochure. Jose and I know they're going to separate us. We heard that couples are worth more, but they don't keep them together. It's easier to control them with the threat of hurting the other. Jose, my love, if you survive and I don't, do not blame yourself. These 5 years with you have been the best of my life. Mom, I know you always wanted me to get married in the San Fernando church, just like you did. I'm sorry I couldn't fulfill that dream, but I want you to know that Jose and I were married here, last night, in our own way. Father Carlos from the Chicago group gave us a blessing. In the eyes of God, we will die as husband and wife. For whoever investigates, the hotel doctor is involved. Dr. Mendez has been giving us sun vitamins that are something else. Also the woman from the spa, a blonde named Svetlana. She has a Russian accent. I heard her on the phone talking about this season's merchandise. A message from David Goldberg, written meticulously on hotel stationery. Analysis of the situation for future investigation. We are 24 targets. Average age, 22.3 years. 14 women, 10 men. All university students or recent graduates, none traveling with family. All paid in cash or with debit cards, not corporate credit cards that would leave a bigger trail. Selection pattern. Conventional physical attractiveness. We could all be catalog models. Apparent health. No obesity, no visible disabilities. Intelligence. All from recognized universities. Conclusion. We are not random victims but selected for specific markets. Finances. Based on overheard conversations, the operation moves approximately 2 to 3 million per season. Minimal operating costs. The hotel is a legitimate business. This is extra income. Estimated ROI, 2,000%. This is a business, not a crime of passion. For the FBI and Interpol, look for bank transfers to the Cayman Islands from this hotel, March, April of every year since 1990. It's a classic money laundering pattern. Also, the manager, Villanueva, has a mistress, Elena something, who works at the local bank. She must know everything. Dad, Mom, I know I was supposed to start at Goldman Sachs this fall. I'm sorry I won't make it. Use my signing bonus for Rebecca's college. Tell her to study hard, but also to live. I focus too much on the future and not enough on the present. I love you. David G. The testimonies. More harrowing. Sophie Dubois, 19 years old, the youngest of the group, wrote in French and English. Maman, Papa, je vous aime. I'm so scared. The man who is going to take us, I recognize him. I saw him in Montreal. He was at the university 2 months ago, taking pictures, mon Dieu. They were watching us from before. This was planned for a long time. Thomas, her boyfriend, is trying to be brave for me, but I can see him shaking. We promised that if one of us survives, we'll find a way back home. But I know we won't survive. I feel it in my bones. For the police, check the security cameras at McGill University, February 1993. A Latino man, 35, 40 years old, black hair, a scar on his neck. He was pretending to be a photographer for the university magazine. He took many pictures of me and Thomas. Now he is here. He is one of the ones who will take us. If you find my body, please bury me in Montreal, with my blue dress, the one I wore for my graduation. Tell Grandmère I prayed the Hail Mary just like she taught me. Je vous aime tous. Sophie Dubois, March 16, 1993. Alex Newman, the lonely programmer from New York. The irony. I came here to escape my life. Fired, no girlfriend, no direction. I thought a vacation would clear my head. Now I'd give anything to go back to my miserable life. Funny how perspective changes when you're about to be trafficked. For whoever investigates this, I hacked their deep system. There's a mirror server in Mexico City. IP 201.47.x6x. The exact numbers are on a piece of paper I hid in the toilet tank of room 411. All the real records are there. Years of operations. Also, we're not the only ones this week. There's another group at a sister hotel 5 kilometers away. 18 people are going to be processed tomorrow. If someone reads this in time, maybe you can save them. Mom, I know we haven't talked since Dad died. I'm sorry for all the cruel things I said. You were grieving too, and I was an asshole. If there's an afterlife, I'll find Dad and tell him you never stopped loving him. I love you. Your son, Alex. The last documented hours. Jessica had continued writing even as she collected the messages from the others. March 16th, 7:00 p.m. Getting ready for the yacht. It's surreal. We are dressing for our own execution. Some have chosen their best clothes, as if it matters. Others are in denial, convinced it's all a misunderstanding. Jennifer and I have hidden dinner knives in our bras. It's not much, but it's something. Katie Roberts, one of the solo travelers, had a panic attack. The hotel doctor came to calm her down. The injection left her like a zombie. Now she's just sitting on the bed, smiling blankly, saying she's so excited for the party. It's terrifying. March 16th, 8:30 p.m. In the lobby, 27 hotel employees are watching us leave. 27 accomplices. I've memorized their faces. If I survive, I will identify every single one of them. The manager is giving a speech about what a special night it will be. Some of the employees can't look us in the eye. Others are smiling. The ones who smile are the real monsters. March 16th, 9 o'clock p.m. On the launches heading to the yacht. The sea is calm, too calm, as if the universe itself is complicit. I can see the yacht in the distance. It's large, ostentatious. But behind it, further out, there's a larger shadow. The cargo ship. It's waiting. Brad and Mike are planning something. They're going to try to take control of one of the launches when we get to the yacht. It's suicidal, but at least it's something. Jennifer is praying. Sarah is writing everyone's names on her arm with a permanent marker. She says if her body is found, at least they'll know we were together. March 16th, 11:45 p.m. On the yacht. The party is a sham. There's music, drinks, but there are also armed men. We've counted 12, more than we can handle. The drinks are obviously drugged. Some have already had them, resigned. The rest of us pretend to drink. I heard one of the guards on his radio. He said, "The transfer will be in 30 minutes. Have the containers ready." Containers. They're going to put us in shipping containers like products. March 17th, 12:30 a.m. Brad and Mike tried. It was a disaster. They were taken down in seconds. They were injected with something and are now unconscious. The escape attempt made our captors nervous. They're speeding everything up. Jennifer gave me this to write down. If my sister Lisa ever has a daughter, name her Jennifer. Let her know her aunt died fighting. Sarah says, tell my twin sister I feel her pain. I know she can feel mine. The twin connection is real. March 17th, 3 o'clock a.m. Back at the hotel, the most shocking entry. I can't believe I'm writing this. They brought us back, but it's temporary. The cargo ship had a mechanical problem. They returned us so as not to raise suspicion if anyone asks questions early tomorrow. But they're coming back for us at 6 o'clock a.m. Some are catatonic. Others are planning to kill themselves before they return. Sophie and Thomas took all the sleeping pills they could find. I found them unconscious, holding each other. I don't know if they'll survive, or if that was the plan. This is my last chance. I'm going to find Rosa, the cleaning lady who has always been kind to me. I'm going to give her all of this. All the messages, my journal, the proof. I hope she's brave. I hope she does the right thing. These young people documented their final hours, knowing they were going to die. If you believe the world needs to hear their testimonies, share now. 24 lives cut short, leaving behind evidence of an international trafficking network. Like if you demand justice even 31 years later. Rosa Elena, the silent guardian. Rosa Elena Gutiérrez remembered every detail of that early morning on March 17, 1993, as if it were yesterday. At 67, with cancer consuming her body, those memories had grown more vivid, not less, as if her mind refused to let them go before revealing the truth. I had arrived earlier that day, Rosa Elena told her granddaughter, her voice weak but clear. My supervisor had asked me to prepare the third-floor suites for some VIPs arriving that afternoon. It was 4:30 in the morning when I heard the sobbing. Rosa Elena had followed the sound to room 312. The door was ajar, which was unusual since the security system closed them automatically. Peeking inside, she saw a scene that would be seared into her memory forever. Jessica Chang, the young Asian woman who had always been so kind to her, was kneeling on the floor, surrounded by papers, writing frantically as tears streamed down her face. When she saw me, she wasn't scared, Rosa Elena continued. It was as if she had been waiting for me. She stood up, took my hands, and in broken Spanish she said, Rosa, you are a mother, right? You have children. When she nodded, Jessica continued, then you understand. Our mothers will never know what happened to us. Please, for the love you have for your children, keep this." Jessica had handed her the journal, the messages, and the small personal items, but she also gave her something else, a disposable camera. "There are pictures in here that prove everything," Jessica had said. "Pictures of the lists with our prices, of the men who are going to take us, of the ship in the distance." Rosa Elena had hidden everything in her cleaning cart, but Jessica wasn't finished. She quickly explained what was happening, speaking so fast Rosa Elena could barely follow. Human trafficking, 24 young people to be sold, an international network, names, places, dates. I asked her why she didn't escape. Rosa Elena told her granddaughter. She looked at me with infinite sadness and said, "There is no escape. They have people everywhere. If I run, they'll punish the others. If we all run, they'll hunt us down like animals. At least this way, dying together, our families will know we didn't abandon them." Jessica's last request. Before Rosa Elena could respond, Jessica had taken out a small jade necklace. "This was my grandmother's in China," she said. "My mother gave it to me before I came. It has our address engraved in Chinese characters on the back. When they find my body and I have no ID, this will prove who I am." But Jessica had one more specific and disturbing request. "Rosa, I know what I'm asking is dangerous, but in Belize, in a town called Cancún, there is a fisherman named Manuel Cordova. He is one of the ones who will transport us, but not by choice. They are forcing him. He has a family like you. If he survives, maybe in the future, when it's safe, he can tell the truth." Rosa Elena had memorized the name, though she didn't understand why it would be important. Jessica continued, "Also, if you can, watch who comes to clean our rooms afterwards. Memorize their faces. They will know what was done with our things, with our bodies." The last moments were the hardest. Jessica hugged Rosa Elena, a desperate embrace from someone who knows they will never again feel a compassionate human touch. "Tell my mother, if you ever can, that her daughter died thinking of her. That I used everything she taught me to try and save us. That I didn't give up." The days after the disappearance. Rosa Elena had returned to her work that morning, feigning normalcy, but inside she was shattered. At 6:15 a.m., from a third-floor window, she watched as the 24 young people were led back to the launches. This time, there was no pretense of a party. Some were unconscious, carried like sacks of grain. Others walked like sleepwalkers. A few, including Jessica, walked with their heads held high, holding hands, facing their fate with dignity. "I will never forget that image," Rosa Elena told her granddaughter. 24 young people in their best clothes, walking to their deaths as if they were going to a graduation. It was the bravest and saddest thing I have ever seen in my life. The next 48 hours were a carefully orchestrated hell. Rosa Elena witnessed a special team empty the rooms. She saw them burn personal belongings in an incinerator behind the hotel. She watched as employees she had known for years participated in the cover-up with the casualness of people who had done this many times before. The manager, Villanueva, gathered all the staff that afternoon, Rosa Elena recalled. He told us the guests had decided to extend their trip to another destination. That if anyone asked, that was what we were to say. Then he looked directly at each of us and said, "Remember that you all have families. It would be a tragedy if something happened to them over a misunderstanding." 2 days later, Rosa Elena had made the hardest decision of her life. She took the journal, the messages, and the other items and went to the police station. She never made it. 2 men intercepted her 2 blocks from her destination. "They showed me pictures." Rosa Elena began to weep at the memory. Pictures of my children walking into school that morning, of my husband at his job, of my mother in her home. They told me, a beautiful family. It would be a shame if they ended up like the gringos from the hotel. They gave her 5,000 American dollars, a fortune for a cleaning lady in 1993. It's a severance payment or a funeral advance, they had told her. You decide. Rosa Elena had taken the money and returned home, where she hid everything Jessica had given her in the safest place she knew. Behind the image of the Virgin of Guadalupe on her personal altar, 31 years of guilt and fear. For 3 decades, Rosa Elena lived with the weight of her secret. She would see the news reports about the families searching for their children and would cry in silence. Every March, when spring break arrived, she would relive those terrible days. Several times she'd come close to mailing the diary anonymously to the families, but fear always won. I tried to justify it, Rosa Elena admitted. I told myself my children needed me alive, that revealing the truth wouldn't bring those kids back. I told myself they might have escaped, that they were alive somewhere, any lie to help me sleep. But there were moments she almost broke her silence. In 1998, when the families organized a massive search, Rosa Elena had prepared a package with copies of the diary to send to the FBI. She made it all the way to the post office, but in line, a man leaned in and whispered, "You have beautiful grandchildren now, Rosa. It would be a shame if they grew up without a grandmother." In 2003, when a Canadian social worker claimed to have seen one of the missing girls in Argentina, Rosa Elena nearly called the media. But that same night, a photograph was slipped under her door. It was her granddaughter, Maria Fernanda, then 3 years old, playing in the park. The message was clear. I lived as a prisoner in my own life, Rosa Elena told her granddaughter. Every day I stayed silent was another betrayal of those kids. But every day I stayed silent was another day my family was safe. The final decision came with her terminal cancer diagnosis in September of 2024. The doctors gave her 3 months. It was then that Rosa Elena made her choice. Death freed me from fear, she explained. What can they do to me now? Kill me? I'm already dying. Hurt my family? I've made every arrangement to protect them. Rosa Elena had been meticulous. She had sent her younger children to live with relatives in other states under elaborate pretenses. She had documented everything she knew, recorded video testimonies, and prepared multiple copies of all the material. But most importantly, she had carefully chosen who to entrust with the secret. I chose you, Maria Fernanda, for a reason, she told her granddaughter. You're a journalist. You have the contacts, the knowledge, the courage I never had. And more importantly, you didn't live through the terror of those days. You don't have the fear etched into your bones like I do. Maria Fernanda had protested, worried for her own safety, but Rosa Elena had an ace up her sleeve. I've already contacted international journalists. If anything happens to you, if anything happens to anyone in this family, everything goes public immediately. They know it. That's why they haven't tried to stop me this time. They know it's too late. Among the items Rosa Elena had saved was Jessica's disposable camera. For 31 years, the film had remained undeveloped, Rosa Elena too terrified of what it might contain. Now, with her granddaughter's help, they finally processed the roll. The 27 photos it held were devastating in their clarity. There were images of the list with the names and prices of the 24 students. Photos of the manager, Villanueva, meeting with men who were clearly not tourists or employees. A blurry but identifiable image of a cargo ship on the horizon. Pictures of some of the young people writing their farewell messages. But the most impactful photo was the last one. A group selfie someone had taken on the yacht. The 24 young people were crammed together, some crying, others trying to smile, all aware that this could be their final picture. In the background, out of focus but visible, were the armed men guarding them. Maria Fernanda made high-resolution digital copies of every photo. With modern technology, it was possible to enhance details that would have been invisible in 1993. License plate numbers on boats, the faces of the perpetrators, even partially visible documents in some shots. For 31 years, Rosa Elena kept this secret, terrified for her family. Now, on her deathbed, she decided the truth was more important than safety. Her belated courage demands that these photos reach the proper authorities. The evidence exists. All that's missing is the will to act. When Maria Fernanda Gutiérrez compared the contents of the diary with the documents recovered in October 2024 from the abandoned hotel, the discrepancies were impossible to ignore. The official papers painted a picture of victims who were completely unaware of their fate until the final moment. The diary revealed a truth that was far more complex and terrifying. The first major contradiction concerned the timeline. The official documents indicated that the 24 students had been successfully transferred on the night of March 16th. Jessica's diary confirmed they had been returned to the hotel due to a technical problem with the freighter and were moved permanently on the morning of the 17th. Maria Fernanda had a theory. The documents were altered to make the operation seem more efficient, she explained in an interview. Admitting a failure that they had to bring them back would have shown a vulnerability. It also would have raised questions about what happened during those extra hours at the hotel. The second contradiction was in the outcome. The documents listed all the missing as successfully processed. But the diary mentioned escape attempts, resistance, even possible suicides. Sofia and Tomas had taken an overdose of pills. Did they survive to be trafficked, or did they die that night? The documents made no distinction. The third and most disturbing contradiction was the destination. The official papers indicated specific routes and buyers. But Jessica had overheard conversations suggesting last-minute changes. The blondes are going to Dubai, she had heard someone say. But the documents said Eastern Europe. Either plans had changed or some of the documents were falsified to mislead any future investigations. The mention of the fisherman Manuel Cordova in the diary had been specific and deliberate. Jessica knew this man, forced to participate, might one day tell the truth. In November 2024, Maria Fernanda, accompanied by a small team of independent documentarians and hired bodyguards, traveled to Belize. Finding Manuel wasn't difficult. On Calle Cocker, everyone knew the old fisherman who lived alone in a shack at the end of the abandoned pier. The hard part was convincing him to talk. When Maria Fernanda mentioned Jessica Chang's name, Manuel turned pale. "How do you know that name?" he asked, his voice trembling. Maria Fernanda showed him the diary. Manuel took it with shaking hands, tears streaming down his weathered face as he read Jessica's words, her specific mention of him. "She knew my name," Manuel murmured. "Of all the monsters there, she knew I didn't want to be there. I don't know how she knew, but she knew." Manuel led them into his shack, closed all the windows and turned on loud music, an old paranoid habit. For 3 hours he recounted his version of events, a version that added new layers of horror to what they already knew. "It wasn't just that one night," Manuel began. "They forced me to make 5 trips between 91 and 95. Each time was the same. Young people, drugged or terrified, moved from tourist yachts to commercial freighters. Some were conscious, begging for their lives. Others were so high they didn't know where they were." Manuel confirmed that the night of March 17, 1993, had been different. The group was larger than usual, and there was resistance. 2 of the boys tried to jump overboard. One of them made it. The guards shot him in the water. I saw the blood spread under the moonlight. They caught the other one before he could jump. They broke his legs as an example. But his most shocking revelation came next. They didn't all go to the same place. The main freighter took most of them. But there was another boat, smaller, more luxurious, a yacht with a Russian flag. They took 6 of them, the prettiest girls and 2 of the men. I heard they were going straight to a private auction in the Mediterranean. Then Manuel saved his most explosive revelation for last. In a voice barely above a whisper, he admitted, in 1995, one of them came back. Maria Fernanda almost dropped her camera. What? Who? The blonde girl from the Texas group. Sarah, I think her name was. She showed up at my door one night, malnourished, beaten, but alive. She had escaped from a brothel in Guatemala. I don't know how she found me. Maybe she remembered my name from the boat. I gave her money, food. I helped her get to Belize City. What happened to her? Maria Fernanda asked urgently. I don't know, Manuel admitted. I gave her the address of a nun who helped women in trouble. Sister Catherine at St. John's Church. I never knew if she made it, but... Manuel paused, clearly debating whether to continue. But what? But in 1997, I received a letter. No return address. It just said, "Thank you, S," and had a picture of the Canadian Rocky Mountains. I always thought, I hoped it was her, telling me she made it. Maria Fernanda immediately began to investigate. Sister Catherine had died in 2001, but the church's records survived. There was no Sarah Williams in the registers, but there was a Sarah Wilson who had sought help in September of 1995. The description matched, the dates matched. The diary and Manuel's testimony painted a picture of an operation far more sophisticated than simple opportunistic trafficking. There were levels, hierarchies, and specialization. Maria Fernanda began to map the network. At the top were the architects, legitimate businessmen who used their companies as fronts, hotel owners, tour operators, even government officials. They never directly touched the victims but facilitated everything. The second level consisted of managers like Roberto Villanueva, executors who coordinated operations on the ground, selected victims, and handled the necessary bribes. The third level was the transporters, people like Manuel, forced or paid to move the merchandise. The fourth level was the processors, those who received the victims at their destinations, brothel owners, plantation foremen, doctors who performed modifications, trainers who broke their spirits. And at the base were the consumers, the end buyers, from millionaires with perverse tastes to corporations needing slave labor, all protected by money, power, and complex jurisdictions. Jessica's diary had mentioned they weren't the first. Maria Fernanda began to investigate older cases. What she found was horrifying. Spring break 1991. 15 American students vanished over 5 days in Cancun. All were reported as having left the hotel voluntarily. No serious investigation followed. Spring break 1992, 19 disappearances in Cancun and Playa del Carmen, following the same pattern. 9 of them were from the very same hotel as the 1993 incident. The pattern repeated in other Mexican tourist destinations. Acapulco, 1990-1995. 43 unsolved disappearances of young tourists. Puerto Vallarta, 1991-1994. 28 disappearances. Cabo San Lucas, 1992-1995. 22 disappearances. The total was staggering. Over 200 young people had vanished from Mexican tourist spots during the first half of the 90s. All fit the same general profile. All were dismissed by the authorities. Working with digital forensic experts, Maria Fernanda re-examined the photos from Jessica's camera. With 2024 image enhancement technology, details invisible in 1993 emerged with stunning clarity. In a photo of Villanueva with the traffickers, A partially visible document on a table showed what appeared to be GPS coordinates and dates, points in international waters between Mexico and Cuba, consistent with maritime trafficking routes. Another photo taken from the hotel window showed the freighter in the distance. Digital enhancement revealed the partial name on its hull. Pana, Star. A search of historical maritime records found the Panama Star, a Panamanian registered freighter that was mysteriously scuttled in an accident off the coast of Colombia in 1996. But the most damning discovery came from a photo Jessica had taken of the board with their pictures and prices. In the reflection of a glass pane barely visible was another man observing. When the image was enhanced and cross-referenced with databases, he was identified as Dmitry Volkov, a Russian trafficker known for operating networks from the Caribbean to Eastern Europe in the 1990s. This network trafficked hundreds of young people for years. Jessica's diary is only the tip of the iceberg. We may be close to solving hundreds of cold cases. 3 days after Manuel Cordova's testimony was made public in Maria Fernanda's documentary, the old fisherman vanished. His boat was found adrift near the Belize Barrier Reef, nets in the water as if he'd been fishing. There was no sign of a struggle, no body, only his absence. Belizean authorities quickly declared him lost at sea, just another old fisherman who'd had an accident. But the locals knew better. Manuel had survived hurricanes. He had navigated these waters for 50 years. He hadn't been lost. He had been taken. Before he disappeared, however, Manuel had done something extraordinary. Aware of the danger, he had prepared what he called his death insurance, a package he left with his daughter, Rosa Cordova, who lived in Belize City. Terrified but brave, Rosa contacted Maria Fernanda. "My father knew this would happen," she said through tears. "He told me, if I disappear, give this to the Mexican journalist. Tell her it's everything I couldn't say on camera." The package contained a detailed, hand-drawn map of the maritime routes used between 1991 and 1995. It held a list of 14 more fishermen who had been forced to participate, dates and descriptions of 8 other transfers Manuel had witnessed, the code names of the boats used regularly and most explosively. An audio cassette from 1994. The tape, secretly recorded by Manuel, captured a conversation between 2 traffickers on their boat. He had hidden a small recorder his son had given him, hoping to one day have evidence that might protect him. The conversation, in Spanish with a thick Cuban accent, was chilling. Voice 1. "How many this month?" Voice 2. 22 from Cancún, 14 from Acapulco, 8 from Vallarta. Voice 1. "All with buyers?" Voice 2. "Most of them. The ones who don't sell go to the plantations. They always need hands." Voice 1. "And the difficult ones?" Voice 2. "To the doctor in Sao Paulo. He pays well for test subjects." Voice 1. "The American from last March caused trouble. Almost escaped in Guatemala." Voice 2. "He's not causing trouble anymore. The doctor took care of it." The tape continued for 45 minutes, detailing routes, bribes, and the names of contacts in different countries. It was direct evidence of an international network. But there was something more disturbing. They specifically mentioned some of the Cancún 24. Voice 2. "The pretty Asian one. The medical student. She has a buyer already. A collector in Macau pays triple for the educated ones." Voice 1. "And the couples?" Voice 2. "Paraguay for one, Argentina for the other. The bosses there prefer couples, easier to control them. We have developments in Canada." That clue, that Sarah Williams might have ended up in Canada, led Maria Fernanda to Montreal in December of 2024. Working with a local private investigator, they began searching for any record of a woman matching Sarah's description appearing in Canada around 1995 or 1996. They found no Sarah Williams, but they found something more interesting: a Sarah Wilson. She had applied for refugee status in 1996, claiming persecution and human trafficking. Her application had been denied for lack of evidence, but the records included a photograph. Maria Fernanda showed the photo to Lisa Williams, Sarah's twin sister, via video call. Lisa broke down, sobbing. "It's her! It's my sister, thinner with different hair, but it's her. I'd know those eyes anywhere." The search for Sarah Wilson led to a dead end. She had vanished from the Canadian system in 1997. But a retired immigration employee remembered the case. "She was strange," he said to Mbai. Clearly traumatized, she insisted that powerful people were looking for her. When her application was denied, she disappeared before the deportation. There was one last record. A Sarah Wilson had worked briefly at a restaurant in Calgary in 1998. The owner, now in her 70s, remembered her. Very quiet, very scared, she worked for 3 months, always paid in cash. One day she just didn't show up. A note arrived saying thank you, and she was gone. Then the second diary appeared. In January of 2025, another shocking development occurred. A man presented himself at the CNN Mexico offices with a package. He identified himself only as Juan and claimed to be the son of a former employee at the hotel where the disappearances took place. "My father died last month," he said. "On his deathbed, he asked me to deliver this. He said it was time for the whole truth to come out." The package contained another journal. This one belonged to Jennifer Morrison. Apparently, she had kept a parallel record to Jessica's, and somehow Juan's father had saved it from the incinerator. Jennifer's diary was different from Jessica's. Less analytical, more emotional, but it contained details that Jessica hadn't captured. March 15th late. There's a girl from the hotel, an employee named Elena. She's been following me. At first I thought it was a coincidence, but it's not. Every time I go somewhere, she appears. Today I confronted her. She went pale and told me in broken English, "No, trust nobody. Tomorrow, no go vote. Stay sick." Before I could ask her more, she disappeared. March 16th, morning. I found Elena dead in the cleaning supply room. They made it look like a suicide, but I saw the marks on her neck. They killed her for trying to warn me. These people don't just traffic people. They kill anyone who interferes. We are completely screwed. The diary also contained a hand-drawn map of the hotel marking escape routes they had considered. Service tunnels, emergency exits, even a path across the rooftops. They had planned an elaborate escape they were never able to execute. The operation continued to mutate. With all this new information, Maria Fernanda began to investigate if similar operations were still active in 2024. What she discovered was that the beast had mutated, not died. The large resorts now had too much security, too many cameras, too much attention. But the boutique hotels, the eco-lodges, the yoga retreats in remote locations, these had become the new hunting grounds. An informant in the hotel industry provided her with chilling data. From 2020 to 2024, there were 73 unsolved disappearances at small beach hotels in Mexico. Most occurred during wellness retreats or authentic experiences. The victims were primarily young women traveling alone or in small groups. The pattern was the same: a sudden checkout, abandoned belongings, no trace. "They're more subtle now," the informant explained. "They don't take large groups, one here, two there, enough to keep the business going, but not enough to draw attention. And they choose even more vulnerable victims, people without many social ties looking to find themselves in paradise." The families reacted. The new revelations revitalized the families of the 24. Many of the original parents had passed away, but their children had taken up the torch. A new organization was formed, Justice for the 24, the second generation. Jennifer Morrison Jr., niece of the missing Jennifer and named in her honor, was now a human rights lawyer and led the group. "My aunt died before I was born," she said at a press conference, "but her absence defined my family. Now we have proof that she fought, that she tried to save others. We will not rest until every single person responsible pays." The group hired an international investigation firm with a simple mandate: find survivors. With the new leads on Sarah Wilson, there was renewed hope. They also pushed for something unprecedented: a joint multinational investigation involving the United States, Canada, Mexico, Belize, Guatemala, Brazil, and Argentina, all the countries mentioned in the documents. For the first time, fueled by international media pressure, there was political will. The employees testified. The publication of the second diary encouraged other former hotel employees to speak out. Protected by the passage of time and, in some cases, witness protection programs, testimonies began to emerge. Carmen Delgado, a former maid: "I saw them take the suitcases. They burned them behind the hotel. I saw passports, photos, letters, all turned to ash. I cried all night, but I couldn't say anything. I had 3 children to feed." Miguel Sanchez, a former bartender: "We were ordered to put drugs in specific drinks. We had codes. A Caribbean special meant a mild sedative. An extra Mayan kiss was the strong dose. The 24 received extra Mayan kisses all week." Pedro Ramirez, former security: "I saw them bring the guys back that morning on the 17th. Some were beaten. One of the blonde girls had blood on her face. 2 of the men couldn't walk. They had to be carried. It wasn't a peaceful transfer like the documents say." Ana Maria Lopez, former receptionist: "I answered the calls from the parents. We had a written script. If anyone went off script, the manager Villanueva would take the call. I saw how he lied to those desperate mothers. I still hear them in my nightmares." But the most shocking testimony came from Roberto Mendez, no relation to the doctor mentioned earlier, who had been the hotel's accountant. He kept 2 sets of books, the real hotel and the shadow ledger. For every person who disappeared, the hotel received a 10% commission. In March of 1993, an extra $120,000 came in. That money was laundered through phantom suppliers. "I have copies of some of the records," he said. "I hid them in case I ever needed to protect myself." Roberto handed over documents showing bank transfers, codes that corresponded to the victims, and even some of the final buyers' names. It was the missing financial evidence that proved this was an organized business, not a series of isolated crimes. The search for Sarah Williams intensified. With confirmation that Sarah had been in Canada, the search took on a new urgency. A team of private investigators funded by the families began a systematic hunt. The Calgary lead took them to Vancouver, where a Sarah Wilson had been treated at a free mental health clinic in 1999. The medical notes described severe PTSD, paranoia, and possible delusions of persecution. But a doctor who had treated her, Dr. James Patterson, now retired, had a different perspective. "They weren't delusions," Dr. Patterson insisted. "That woman had lived through something horrific. The things she described, trafficking, slavery, escape, they were too detailed, too consistent to be fantasies, but without evidence, what could we do?" Dr. Patterson remembered something else. "She mentioned once that she had a twin sister. She said, 'She must think I'm dead. It's better this way. If she knows I'm alive, she'll come looking for me and they'll get her too.'" The trail heated up in 2000 when a Sarah Wilson crossed into the United States through Washington state. But there the trail went completely cold. It was as if she had vanished into thin air. until Maria Fernanda had an idea. What if Sarah had changed her name again? They began searching for Jane Doe's, unidentified women in hospitals and morgues. It was a depressing search that led to many dead ends. But then, a stroke of luck. A woman matching Sarah's description had been arrested for vagrancy in Portland, Oregon in 2003. She had given the name Hope Thompson. She had no ID. She refused to give any personal information. She was released after 48 hours. Hope Thompson had worked various temp jobs in Portland between 2003 and 2010, always for cash, always staying invisible. Coworkers remembered her as quiet, skittish, but kind. She never talked about her past. One former colleague said, "It was like her life began the day you met her." The last record of Hope Thompson was from 2010, when she had worked at a bookstore that had since closed. The owner had passed away, but his son remembered something. Hope received a phone call one day that terrified her. She turned white as a sheet, dropped everything, and left. She never came back for her last paycheck. Sarah Williams could be alive, hiding under another name. Still terrified after 31 years. If you know someone who appeared without a clear past in the 90s or 2000s, they could be one of the 24. Share this story. Use the hashtag #FindSarah. Every share could reunite a family. The international implications were staggering. One of the most disturbing revelations from the diary and the new testimonies was the repeated mention of the doctor in Brazil who paid for test subjects. Working with Brazilian journalists, Maria Fernanda began to investigate. The search led them to Dr. Hans Müller, a German physician who had operated a private clinic on the outskirts of Sao Paulo between 1985 and 1998. Officially, the clinic researched experimental treatments for rare diseases. Unofficially, locals called it the House of Screams. A former employee of the clinic, protected by anonymity, spoke to the investigative team. Young people arrived, mostly foreigners. They said they were volunteers, but we never saw them sign anything. Some would disappear after a few weeks. Others, we would find their ashes in the incinerator. The clinic's records had been destroyed when it closed in 1998, after Dr. Muller died in a convenient car accident. But the investigators found something. Import records for experimental drugs that coincided with the dates of the Cancún disappearances. More chillingly, they found testimony from neighbors about young people who had escaped the clinic. One woman recalled, "In 1994, a young American man appeared at my door barefoot in a hospital gown. He was begging for help in English. Before I could do anything, men from the clinic arrived and dragged him away. I never saw him again." The connection to Eastern Europe was just as grim. The documents mentioned shipments there, and the new testimonies confirmed it. A defector from the Russian mafia, now in witness protection, provided crucial information. In the 90s, he said, there were private auctions of special products in Prague, Budapest, and Bucharest. Buyers from all over the world would come. I saw Americans, Canadians, Latinos, all young, all beautiful, all broken. The buyers paid fortunes. A Japanese collector paid $200,000 for a pair of American college students. The defector, known only as Victor, continued. Some went to luxury brothels for exclusive clients. Others to private homes as special domestic staff. The unluckiest ones went to baby farms where I'd rather not say what happened there. Victor provided a list of names of buyers and facilitators. Many were dead, but some were still alive. Now respectable businessmen, politicians, even a judge. The list was turned over to Interpol, but the investigations moved with frustrating slowness. And in Argentina, the lead that Maria and Jose might have been sent there led to disturbing discoveries. a private investigator in Buenos Aires, Carlos Mendoza, had been investigating trafficking-related disappearances for decades. In the 90s, there was a specific demand for young couples, Mendoza explained. Wealthy families in the country's interior would buy them as comprehensive domestic service. The idea was that by keeping the couples together, using one to control the other, they were more manageable. Mendoza had identified at least 12 estates in the provinces of Buenos Aires, Córdoba, and Mendoza, where there had been reports of foreign employees who never left the properties. At one of these estates, the Estancia San Rafael, there was a particularly interesting record. In 1995, there was a fire in the employee quarters, Mendoza recounted. Firefighters reported finding a couple chained up in the basement. The man spoke Spanish with a Texan accent. The woman was too traumatized to speak. But before they could be questioned, they vanished from the hospital. The description was a match for Maria and Jose. Mendoza had managed to track down the doctor who had briefly treated them. His account was chilling. The man bore the scars of a whip across his back. The woman showed signs of multiple pregnancies. Both had the telltale marks of shackles on their ankles and wrists. When I tried to report it, I was told to forget everything if I valued my medical license. They mentioned the Middle East, private auctions. The mention of Dubai and Middle Eastern buyers led to the most difficult lines of inquiry. The Gulf countries, with their strict privacy laws and minimal cooperation with international investigations, were a black hole for information. But a breakthrough came from an unexpected source, a Filipino social worker who had spent the 90s and 2000s in Dubai, helping abused domestic workers. I saw many Western women in strange situations, she said, her voice clear over an encrypted video call. Officially, they were wives or domestic staff, but it was clear they were there against their will. I once met an American blonde who begged me for help. She said her name was Jenny and she was from Texas. Before I could do anything, I was deported. The description was a perfect match for Jennifer Morrison. The social worker had tried to follow up on the case from the Philippines but was met with a wall of silence. The families who hold these women are untouchable, an investigative journalist who had covered human trafficking in the Gulf later added. Princes, ministers, billionaires, they have diplomatic immunity, unlimited influence. It's an open secret that there are private collections of Western women. They're kept in luxurious compounds. Technically, they have everything they need, except freedom. Some adapt, resign themselves, others don't last very long. Developments in Guatemala. Manuel's mention of Sarah Williams escaping from a brothel in Guatemala opened a new front in the investigation. This led to Father Francisco Martinez, a human rights activist who had been documenting such cases for 3 decades. In the 90s, Father Francisco explained, there were several high-end brothels here, catering to the military, politicians, and narcos. They had women from all over the world. I remember the rumors, whispers of American and Canadian girls, but no one dared to investigate. It was too dangerous. Father Francisco had kept meticulous records. In September of 1995, he documented the escape of 3 women from a brothel called El Paraíso on the outskirts of Guatemala City. One of them matched Sarah Williams's description. We found her on the road, nearly dead from dehydration, he recalled. She spoke English, said she needed to get to Belize. We helped her cross the border. We never knew her real name. She called herself Mary, but she had a distinct Texan accent. The El Paraíso brothel had burned to the ground in 1996, in what was officially ruled an electrical accident. There were no survivors to interrogate. The owners were never formally identified. These victims were scattered across the globe like merchandise. Every country mentioned has its own dark secrets. If you worked in hotels, clinics, or security in the 90s and saw something suspicious, it's time to speak up. Comment with "Witness for Truth." Your information could solve decades of mystery. The circle closes. Rosa Elena passed away on February 15, 2025, just 3 months after revealing her secret. Her final days were a mixture of peace and urgency. Peace for having finally unshackled the truth. Urgency to ensure that nothing was left unsaid. A week before she died, Rosa Elena recorded a 3-hour video testimony. With supplemental oxygen and frequent pauses, she recounted every detail she could remember. Names of complicit employees, dates of other disappearances she had witnessed, conversations she had overheard. "I want the families to know that their children were brave," she said, looking directly into the camera. "They did not go silently. They fought. They supported each other. In their final hours, the love they showed one another was the only beautiful thing in that entire nightmare." Rosa Elena also revealed something she had kept secret even from her own family. For years, she had been anonymously sending money to some of the families of the disappeared. The $5,000 she had been given as a bribe, she never touched for herself. Every year on the anniversary, she sent what she could. "I know it wasn't much, but I needed to do something. It was my way of asking for forgiveness for my cowardice." Her funeral was attended by hundreds. The families of the 24 sent representatives. Jennifer Morrison Jr. spoke on behalf of them all. Rosa Elena lived for 31 years with a burden that was not hers to carry. The system made her a victim too. We do not judge her. We thank her for preserving the last words of our loved ones. The investigation continues. Maria Fernanda Gutiérrez became the unofficial voice of the case. Her documentary, The Cancún 24 Voices from the Silence, won international awards. More importantly, it kept the case in the public consciousness. But Maria Fernanda didn't stop there. She established the Rosa Elena Gutiérrez Foundation, dedicated to investigating disappearances in tourist areas. In its first year, the foundation received over 500 reports of similar unsolved cases, dating from the 1980s to the present day. "My grandmother kept a secret out of fear," Maria Fernanda said in an interview. "How many others are holding similar secrets? My message is simple. You don't have to be afraid anymore. Speak up. The families deserve to know." The foundation also established a witness protection program, working with international organizations to provide security for those who dared to come forward. Unprecedented legal developments. In March of 2025, something unprecedented happened. The International Criminal Court announced it would consider the case of the Cancún 24 as a crime against humanity. It was the first time that disappearances related to tourism would be treated at this level. The chief prosecutor, Fatou Bensouda, declared these were not isolated crimes but part of a systematic attack against a civilian population. The fact that the victims were tourists does not diminish the gravity. If anything, the use of the tourism industry as a facade for human trafficking aggravates the crimes. Mexico, under immense international pressure, announced its own Truth Commission. With special powers to access classified files and offer amnesty in exchange for testimony, the commission promised an exhaustive investigation. The United States officially reopened the cases as a terrorism investigation, arguing that the systematic targeting of American citizens constituted an act of terror. This granted them broad jurisdiction and nearly unlimited resources. Survivors emerge from the shadows. The documentary and media storm had an effect no one could have predicted. People who had lived for decades in the shadows began to step into the light. In April 2025, a woman walked into the American Embassy in Ottawa. She identified herself as Sarah Williams. After 32 years, one of the Cancún 24 had officially survived and returned. Sarah, now 53 but still recognizable as the young university student she had been, told her story to the authorities. She had escaped the brothel in Guatemala in 1995, made her way to Canada and lived under multiple false identities. Fear had kept her hidden, even long after her original captors were likely dead. "Every day for 32 years I looked over my shoulder," she said in her first public appearance. "Every time someone looked at me for too long, I thought they had come for me. I lived, but it wasn't a life. It was survival." Her reunion with her twin sister Lisa was broadcast worldwide. The two women, now in their 50s, simply held each other and wept for the lost decades. "I always knew you were alive," Lisa sobbed. "A twin knows. I could feel you." Sarah's appearance encouraged others. A week later, a man in Costa Rica contacted the American embassy. He claimed to be Mike Davis, though he had lived as Miguel Herrera for decades. He had escaped by jumping from a transport ship, swimming to the coast of Belize, and fleeing into Central America. "I tried to go back several times," Mike explained. "But every time I got near an embassy or consulate, I saw people watching. Maybe it was paranoia, but I couldn't take the risk. I built a new life. I'm married, I have children. They don't know who I really was." Those who didn't return. For every survivor who emerged, there were families who finally received confirmation of what they had always feared. Through forensic records, DNA, and cross-reference testimony, deaths were confirmed. Jennifer Morrison had died in Dubai in 2001, officially of natural causes at the age of 29. Brad Thompson had been executed in Guatemala in 1994 for repeatedly trying to escape. Jessica Chang had died in Macau in 1997, an apparent suicide under suspicious circumstances. David Goldberg had survived until 2003, forced to work in money laundering until he knew too much. The list went on, each confirmation an old wound that could finally, horribly begin to heal with the certainty of truth the tourism industry responds. The impact on Mexican tourism was immediate and severe. Bookings dropped by 40% in the first few months after the revelations. Cancún in particular saw mass cancellations. The response from the government and the industry was massive. New security measures were implemented. Mandatory biometric registration for all guests, cloud-backed security cameras inaccessible to local staff, direct hotlines to embassies in every hotel, and independent international inspectors. But activists warned that these measures would only push the problem into less monitored areas. "Evil doesn't disappear," Maria Fernanda said. "It just moves into deeper shadows." The trial of the century. In September 2025, what the media dubbed the trial of the century began. Although most of the direct perpetrators were dead, 47 individuals involved at various levels of the operation were identified and arrested. Among the accused were 3 former hotel managers who had helped select victims, 2 ex-immigration officials who had provided false documents, a banker who had laundered the profits, and several former traffickers who had agreed to cooperate in exchange for reduced sentences. The trial, broadcast internationally, revealed even more disturbing details about the network's scale. It was estimated that between 1990 and 2000, over 800 people had been trafficked through this specific network from Mexican resorts alone. Roberto Villanueva, the hotel manager, though dead since 1995, was tried in absentia. Documents showed he had been directly responsible for at least 100 disappearances during his career. A new dawn. The case of the Cancún 24 fundamentally changed how the world viewed tourism and security. International protocols were established. Shared databases were created. Hotel staff were trained to recognize the signs of trafficking. Most importantly, it gave a voice to thousands of other unsolved cases. Families who had been ignored for decades suddenly found their cases being re-examined. Some found answers. Others found community in their shared grief. Sarah Williams, now living openly under her real name, became an activist. "I survived for a reason," she said, "to tell this story, to make sure no one else goes through what we went through." Mike Davis, reunited with his family after 32 years, struggled with survivor's guilt. Why me? Why did I survive when Brad didn't? There's no answer. I can only honor his memory by living the life he couldn't. The enduring legacy. Jessica Chang's diary was published in its entirety, with all proceeds going to the families. It became required reading in criminology and human rights courses. Her final words resonated globally. "If anyone reads this, know that we did not give up. We fought with every fiber of our being. We held each other up until the very end. In our last free hours, there were no strangers among us, only brothers and sisters bound by tragedy." That is what I want you to remember. In the absolute darkest of nights, human love shone through. They could not take that from us. The other messages were delivered to their respective families. Each one a painful but necessary closure. The personal items were returned: Jennifer's rosary to her mother, Brad's ring to his brother, Jessica's jade necklace to her parents. 31 years later, some families have answers. Others are still searching. If this story moved you, share it. Every view keeps the memory of the 24 alive. Comment with the 24 never forgotten. Subscribe for more investigations into unsolved cases. The case of the Cancún 24 became a turning point in the fight against human trafficking. For the first time, the world saw how a tourist paradise could become a living hell, how the vulnerability of a traveler could be systematically exploited. The United Nations established the Cancún Protocol, a new set of international regulations for the tourism industry. Every signatory nation pledged to investigate all tourist disappearances, no matter how much time had passed, to establish specialized units for crimes against tourists, to share information between countries without bureaucratic restrictions, and to protect witnesses who dared to speak out even decades later. The final numbers, when the dust settled and the investigations concluded, were sobering. Of the 24 who disappeared in March of 1993, 2 were confirmed survivors, Sarah Williams and Mike Davis. 3 were possibly alive but unlocated. 15 were confirmed deceased through records and testimony. 4 remained a complete mystery, but the impact was far greater. The investigation led to 312 cold cases being reopened globally, resulting in 89 arrests in 15 countries and 28 trafficking victims being liberated from current situations. Countless others were saved by the new awareness and protocols. Maria Fernanda's documentary won an Oscar in 2026. In her acceptance speech, she brought Jessica Chang's diary to the stage. "This Oscar is not mine," she said. "It belongs to Jessica Chang, who documented the horror as she lived it, to Jennifer Morrison, who fought until the end, to Rosa Elena Gutiérrez, my grandmother, who preserved the truth despite her fear, and to all 24 who in their final hours taught us that human love and solidarity can survive even in the darkest of circumstances." The book, based on the full investigation, Voices from a Lost Paradise, became an international bestseller, translated into 30 languages. Its profits established a permanent fund to search for people who go missing in tourist settings. Mexico, facing a catastrophic crisis of its tourism reputation, implemented the most comprehensive reforms in its history. Every hotel was now required to have an internationally certified security officer on staff. Security cameras were now linked directly to a federal database, one that couldn't be accessed locally. A 24/7 hotline was established for tourists in distress, staffed by a multilingual team. Hotel employees were subjected to exhaustive background checks. A DNA database of all tourists was created, voluntary but incentivized with discounts. Cancún specifically established the Memorial of the 24. It wasn't a physical monument that might frighten tourists away, but rather a security and awareness center, cleverly disguised as an interactive museum on the region's history. The survivors. 1 year later, after intensive therapy and the unwavering support of her family, Sarah Williams began to rebuild her life. At 54 years old, she returned to college to finish her degree. "I'm 32 years behind," she said, "but Jessica wrote that we should live for those who couldn't, and that's what I'm going to do." For Mike Davis, reintegration was a greater struggle. His family in Mexico, who knew nothing of his past, found it difficult to accept the truth. His eldest son, raised as a Mexican, was suddenly discovering his father was a famous missing American. "It's as if my father died," the son said, "and a stranger was born in his place." Together, the two survivors established a joint foundation, Project Return, dedicated to helping survivors of trafficking reintegrate into society, no matter how much time had passed. The unanswered questions. Despite all the revelations, mysteries remained. Who were the true masterminds of the network? The documents hinted at higher, unidentified levels of command. How many victims were there really? The estimate of 800 seemed conservative, considering the scale of the operation. And where are the four whose fates remain a complete mystery? Could they still be alive, like Sarah and Mike, living under false identities? Does a version of this network continue to operate? Current disappearance patterns suggest that it does, though in a transformed state. Maria Fernanda continued to investigate these questions. "The case of the 24 isn't the end," she said. "It's the beginning. Every answer we find opens 10 new questions. I will not stop until every single one is answered." Rosa Elena's final message. Rosa Elena had left a message for the world. "For 31 years, fear silenced me, but silence is complicity. If you know something, if you saw something, if you heard something, speak. Don't wait, as I did, until you are on your deathbed. The families deserve to know. The missing deserve to be remembered, and the guilty, no matter how much time has passed, deserve to be exposed. Don't let paradise blind you. Behind every perfect beach, every luxurious resort, every promise of escape, there can be darkness. Travel, enjoy, live, but never forget. Evil flourishes when good people do nothing. I was silent out of fear. You don't have to be. The truth, even if it takes 31 years, always finds a way to the surface." Closing the circle. On March 17th, 2026, exactly 33 years after the disappearance, the families of the 24 gathered in Cancun. Not at the site of the demolished hotel, but on the public beach nearby. At sunset, the very hour the 24 had been taken, the families began their ceremony. Each held a photograph of their lost loved one, those who had been found alive or dead, and those who were still missing. Sarah Williams was there, holding a photo of her 21-year-old self beside Jennifer Morrison. "We were just girls," she said, her voice soft. "Girls who wanted some fun in the sun. We didn't deserve what happened to us. But I survived, and as long as I live, I will tell our story." Mike Davis, who had flown in from Costa Rica with his family, spoke for the men. "Brad Thompson was my best friend. He died trying to save us all. He wasn't just a college athlete. He was a hero. They all were." Maria Fernanda read excerpts from Jessica Chung's diary. Her voice broke on the final words. "Don't forget us." Lisa Williams, Sarah's twin sister, spoke last. "For 32 years, a part of me was dead, Now, my sister is back, but she is changed, scarred. The 24 who went to Cancun never really came back. Even the survivors are different people, but they are here, in our hearts, in our fight for justice, in our determination to ensure this never happens again. At the end of the ceremony, they released 24 paper lanterns into the night sky. Each carried the name of one of the missing. The lanterns rose over the Caribbean Sea, glowing against the darkness until they vanished into the distance. But their light, like the truth Rosa Elena had preserved, like the words Jessica had written, like the courage they had all shown, would continue to shine. A permanent reminder that even in the most beautiful places, vigilance is the price of safety, and that sometimes secrets kept out of fear can, decades later, become the keys that unlock the doors to justice. This story changed everything we knew about the Cancun 24. Jessica's diary, kept for 31 years by Rosa Elena, revealed they knew their fate and fought until the very end. Sarah Williams survived, Mike Davis survived. Others could still be out there, alive in hiding, waiting for it to be safe to return. If this story has moved you, subscribe now. Next week I will reveal another case, completely different but just as shocking. But I promise you this, when I find new information about the 24, you will be the first to know. Share this video. Someone somewhere might have the information that solves the remaining cases. Use the hashtags #USACancunDiary, the 24 Live, Justice for the 24. Comment if you know of similar unsolved cases. Every clue matters, every testimony counts. Rosa Elena waited 31 years to speak. Let's not wait that long to act. Turn on all notifications, not just the bell, all of them. Because the most shocking truths arrive when you least expect them. Remember the words of Jessica Chung. In the most absolute darkness, human love shone. They couldn't take that from us. And remember this, paradise can hide hell, but the truth, no matter how long it takes, always finds a way to the surface. Keep your eyes open, question everything, and never ever travel alone without telling someone exactly where you will be, because now we know. The Cancun 24 didn't disappear. They were stolen, and some, against all odds, survived to tell the tale. This is your channel for hidden truths. Until the next video, take care. And remember, the truth has no expiration date.